Ms. Mkhwanazi.
Thank you, Chairperson. Mr. Nciza, we were in the annexure bundle.
Yes, ma'am.
We were on page 54 of the annexure bundle. And we were wrapping up your discussion as it relates to paragraph 39.1 of your witness statement.
Yes, ma'am.
A concluding question on this aspect. In your exchange with the commissioners, you indicated that one of the concerns you had concerning this document was that it was essentially a bearer document, meaning it applied in the hands of whoever possessed it, and that it therefore purported to bind the municipality to an endless working relationship in that context. Is that a fair reflection of your concern there?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Thank you.
But just before we stop off, can I just indicate one more concern?
Please do.
This letter, commissioners, if you recall during the lockdown period on COVID-19, we had similar letters, but these are letters that were given to essential services workers for them to go to work. What those letters did is that even if you met the army, the police, and everybody else, you issue this letter, they let go of you. They don't even search your car, they don't do anything. And you would note that indeed one of the biggest problems is there's a lot of trafficking of illicit goods. So a person bearing this letter would be able to traffic goods and all sorts of things. This really raised that concern because this was done in 2021, and we were still as a country still dealing with issues that related to COVID-19. And now all of a sudden you've got people that are saying these cars, wherever they move inside and outside of the jurisdiction of the municipality. They have a right to do as they please, so to speak, and that they will not be subjected to the same scrutiny that other vehicles would be subjected to. That was a serious concern as well.
Thank you, Mr. Nciza. In paragraph 39.2 of your statement, paragraph 39.2, we're still on page 14. You then there set out your concerns as they related to the Memoranda of Understanding as concluded between the municipality and Medicare and the municipality and Cat Security and Protection Services. In order to facilitate your evidence on this score, could I ask you to turn to page 134 in the annexure bundle?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. This document was also part and parcel of the investigation report presented to you. Please then, yes, page 134. Please then share with the Commission the concerns you had as they relate to this document on page 134, as set out in paragraph 39.2 of your witness statement.
Thank you, Counsel. The first point of call that you need to appreciate is that as a manager, you operate within a very strict regulatory framework. A municipality is a creature of statute. And as a creature of statute, a municipality of functions in a set delegation of authority system. I think this is in terms of Section 59 of the Municipal Systems Act. So you can't willy-nilly have such documents. You simply can't. You know, before you get to the point of generating a document of this nature, there should be a report that speaks to the need that has been identified. Before you even get to the point of crafting a memorandum of agreement or a memorandum of understanding, you should first, as an official of the municipality, working, of course, within that delegations matrix, you should then firstly craft a report that says, in my functional space, these are deficiencies that we've noted. And as a result of noting these deficiencies, there is a need for us, because we do not have the necessary capacity and resources internally, there is a need for us then to engage external sources for us to capacitate the institution to meet these needs. Then that report must then be approved internally in the department by your senior management team. Then the HOD takes ownership of that, submits it to the other structures of the municipality, submits it to the city managers, SMT, it goes to your mayoral committee and the likes, you know, so that indeed the institution then is able to enter into that particular arrangement with an external source. So you can't have a situation wherein there is a memorandum of agreement at any given point that has not gone through the due processes of the municipality. Even an HOD would not have the authority to, out of nowhere, craft a memorandum of understanding with an external source and say, this is what is going to happen. So that's the first point. You know, before even going to the content of the memorandum, the existence thereof is questionable. Now, when you then go through the memorandum, the most important thing, remembering that there is a letter that says there is a memorandum that is in existence, you know. Then you go through the memorandum. The memorandum is signed by one person at page 139. And when you look at the signature on page 139 and the signature that we have just dealt with now on page 54, just through the naked eye, without necessarily one being an expert in this particular field, but through the naked eye, you could see that it's the same signature of J.D. Mkhwanazi.
Is saying that it's questionable, not an understatement.
Sorry, miss.
Is saying that the existence of the MOU is questionable, not an understatement. Because all that you have is the signature of the person purporting to support, and then thereafter there's supposed to be approvals. And as I look at this, at least two, and there's not a single one. So it was just the person who supported, and that was it. So no indication of approval at all.
There is no approval at all. So you are correct, Chair, that indeed to say that you know the existence might be an understatement. This was not just a mere misrepresentation. It's gross in its nature, because in the letter of October, it says there is a memorandum of understanding that is in existence, when there is no memorandum of memorandum of agreement in existence, because it has never been approved. I think that is without necessarily talking to the issues about the legalities that are contained, but just on that score, you know, from an HR point of view, you can't have a memorandum of understanding, even if it was signed. I need to make this point. Even if this memorandum of agreement was signed by Mzolo and Mapiyeye, in the absence of a report approving it, it cannot be a binding memorandum. It cannot be a memorandum that is owned by the municipality.
But on that, I want to posit this scenario. Let us say there were internal discussions within the municipality involving all relevant role players and the person who would ordinarily have had to prepare the document that you are referring to was also present at those discussions, and agreement was reached at that level. Would there be anything the matter if what then followed was a memorandum of agreement without what you refer to as a document motivating for the MOU? Would there be any problem with what I'm positing to you?
Mr. Chair, we don't work that way. We don't have mere discussions, and discussions result in binding agreements. No. We are an institution, like I say, we are a regulated entity. And therefore, even if there were discussions, those discussions must then be reduced into a report, which report must go through the hierarchy of the institution. If indeed the delegated authority for approval of that report resides with the city manager, then the city manager must approve, and there must be a letter or rather a document where the city manager has approved. If the approval resides with a committee of council, then it must go to that council. There must be a resolution. Remember, the municipality operates on the basis of resolutions. So in the absence of a resolution, you cannot have an official saying that I had discussions. Hence I was saying, even if indeed Mzolo and Mapie had signed this document, in my view, the document would not have the force of law in the absence of a resolution that permitted the existence of the document.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairperson. And Mr. Nciza, when Colonel Erasmus presented you with this investigation report, the outcome of his investigation, upon your assessment of it, did you ever identify any resolution or any report that purported to give credence to the memoranda of agreement cited?
None at all.
Thank you. Can I ask if there are any further remarks or concerns you would like to identify as it relates to the Medicare memoranda, which you have just been discussing with the Commission?
I think, the issues that that talk to HR processes, I've engaged them. I don't want to actually get into whether EMS was involved, because it talks about emergency services work, and there is no, because at the end of the day, as much as this memorandum purports to be an EMPD memorandum, but the contents of the memorandum itself also talk to emergency services, and there is no aspect in the or rather line where emergency services head was also to approve. I think Commissioner Spies spoke to an issue of red lights being an emergency services function. Now, if indeed you are going to do this, then emergency services must be involved. Must be involved, and you can't have a memorandum that speaks to two different departments that are regulated. Both these departments are regulated. There's legal prescripts that actually regulate how you must do this function as a municipality. Then you conclude a memorandum that conflates the two. It's just, there's just a lot that is wrong with this.
Was any investigation done whether to determine whether any police members of the EMPD utilized this Medicare services that seem to have been intended to be agreed here, and whether any payments relation to this memorandum or this purported memorandum were ever made by the municipality to this company?
No, Madam Commissioner, I do not recall any such investigation having been conducted. The only thing that this investigation showed is that firstly, we only became aware of this memorandum when the investigation was conducted. You know, there was no evidence of this having been utilized anywhere else. You know, we just became aware because Brigadier Mkhwanazi, in trying to sort of defend himself, raised the issue to say, but I submitted a request for approval of this memorandum and these particular processes. But outside of that, I'm not aware of any.
At least as of the date that you stopped working, you're not aware of an investigation done to determine whether services were provided and whether payments were made.
I'm not aware.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Nciza, turning back to paragraph 39.2 of your statement, you also describe the concerns you have as regarding the Memorandum of Understanding with CAT Security and Protection Services. Would you please turn to page 141 in your annexure bundle? 141.
I'm there.
Thank you. And what is the title of that document in bold at the top?
It's a memorandum of agreement entered into between the Ekurhuleni Metropolitan Police Department, duly represented, and CAT VIP Protection,
Thank
duly
you.
represented by Matlala.
Thank you. I'll invite you at this juncture to detail to the Commission the notable concerns you had upon consideration of this document.
The concerns are by and large similar. Both agreements indicate, for instance, on the front page of each agreement, that the EMPD is duly represented by a blank. In both the Medicare document as well as the CAT VIP document. If indeed you are to enter into an agreement, even our contracts in the municipality, a mere contract of employment would stipulate that this contract of employment has entered into between the city of Ekurhuleni and Xolani Nciza. The city of Ekurhuleni is duly represented by the city manager as per resolution taken on this date, which will be the date that the city manager was appointed. So it would not just simply say duly represented. Any agreement that we entered into, it would say duly represented by this individual, and this individual is empowered by this resolution. You see, so there must be that linkage. So you can't just simply have a memorandum of agreement that is represented by a blank. In this instance, it's a blank. But both agreements in respect of the service provider are represented. The Medicare is represented by Mike Van Veek. The CAT VIP protection is represented by Matlala. That's one of the things that you just pick up about the crisis that this thing was. But the CAT VIP one, similarly, you have on page 143 the signature of J.D. Mkhwanazi as the Director of Specialized Services with a date. And interestingly, commissioners, when one has due regard to the date that is on page 143, then you look at that in relation to the letter on page 54. This was purportedly signed by Brigadier Mkhwanazi on the 13th. Now, I am aware that Brigadier Mkhwanazi was then appointed on the 15th of October 2021 to act as the Deputy Chief of Police Operations. So this purportedly was signed 2 days before he acted in the position. And it's a funny coincidence. He gets appointed to act on the 15th, and then on the 16th, he issues a letter that there's a relationship. And when you look at that relationship is based on a memorandum of agreement that is only signed by himself, purportedly 3 days before he issued the letter. And again, similarly with the Medicare memorandum of agreement, the effective date of these agreements is not stipulated. Safe to say it's some date in October 2021. But the actual date when these things were supposed to come into effect is not really indicated. And also, when you look at it, it says /10/2021, then there's a dash, which in my view would depict the intended conclusion date. And again, that is not also stipulated, maybe because it was supposed to be an endless working relationship.
And it's not signed even by Mr. Matlala.
That's another thing. That's another thing that is also interesting. This one it's a bit worse, because when you look at page 143, you've got support signed, and then page 144, you've got approved by Matlala. Then 145, you've got approved by MAPA. So this suggests that the person that was to approve was Matlala before MAPA approved.
Isn't another remarkable anomaly that at 143, the Director of Specialized Services, Mkhwanazi, supports. So he's the initiator, right? He indicates, I support this at 143. And then he indicates, as you've said, Matlala would approve, but I'm more interested in where he's the initiator. And this is on the 13th of October 2021. And then you say he gets appointed on the 15th to be an acting police chief. And then on the 16th at page 54, the person who supported is now the acting police commissioner, and he's the one that's approving what he was recommending. Do you have any comment about that?
Let me start off by indicating, commissioners, that when we craft reports or a memoranda that requires approval, you as the person that drafts the memorandum that requires your boss's approval, you are the recommender. You recommend because you have articulated that this is, you would have indicated the problem statement, and then you would have indicated what is it that you are proposing your superior must do to resolve the problem statement. So then you recommend. You cannot be the supporter. It commences with a recommendation, the person who's recommending. Then, if you're having, like in this situation, Mkhwanazi was supposed to be recommending, Mkhwanazi's supervisor, who was Mzolo, would have then been the one who supports the recommendation. Then the chief of police, MAPA, would be approving. So that should be the line that must be followed. Recommend, support, approve. Now, he says he's supporting when he is the initiator. So that also has got its own issues in terms of the processes in the municipality. But you are correct. It raises eyebrows to say there is a memorandum that is purportedly signed on the 13th, 2 days before he gets appointed to act. And then a day after he got appointed to act, he issues a memorandum saying, this is the situation. In his capacity as the acting now, and whereas the person who's in the position, the person who holds the deputy chief of police position, Mzolo, had not supported anything. We do not have evidence of Mzolo supporting, let alone Mapie approving. But when you assumed Mzolo's position, he then says, this is what is happening under my command.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Mr. Nciza, I think I heard you pronounce it that way. So the K is not really silent. You say the mover would sign as a recommender and the immediate supervisor would sign as the supporter and the head would then approve. Where would someone like Mr. Matlala in this one feature in that process?
And that is one of the things that is problematic. If this was a proper memorandum of agreement, the person that must sign on behalf of the municipality would be the person who must appear on page 134. On page 134, duly represented must have a name. And underneath that name, before the end, you must indicate duly authorized. Duly authorized by council resolution, this and this and that. Now, once you have it that way, Commissioner, at the end, at the signature page, the only person that must be there is the duly represented. Any other person becomes a witness if indeed you are going to have witnesses to the agreement. So the agreement must then be entered into between two people only, the duly represented representing the municipality and the duly represented representing CAT VIP protection services. Those are the people that actually enter into the agreement. Any other person becomes a witness. So the framing of this entire agreement is just totally, out of sync with how the municipality operates.
So what you mean is the signature of the recommender, the signature of the supporter, and the signature of the person approving would all be in the document you referred to earlier, which kickstarts the process. But
Exactly.
Once you get to the agreement entered into and between, the signatures that you have are only those of the two people concluding the agreement.
Exactly.
Thank you.
So in this instance, if indeed...
So we ought not to have had these signatures at all in this document. So it's just a total mess.
At all.
Oh, okay, I get the picture.
You mentioned something in your response to the chairperson, which raises a different question now. You said somebody signing on behalf of the municipality. Now, these two documents refer to the EMPD as a counterparty. My question to you is, in terms of the prescripts of the Ekurhuleni municipality, does the EMPD have contractual capacity? Can the EMPD as a unit enter into contracts on its own, or must those contracts be concluded by the municipality?
Let's take the example of a supply chain management process to answer your question. Where there is a tender process that has been engaged upon by the municipality, it's a tender that comes from the EMPD. It goes through your processes of bid adjudication, evaluation and adjudication. Once it's concluded, as much as it is a tender in the EMPD, the city manager then approves the tender. There's an agreement that must then be entered into with the service providers that are appointed in terms of that tender. It is not the chief of police that enters into that agreement. it would either be the CFO or the city manager. You see? So you ordinarily would not have a contractual dispensation between EMPD and a service provider. You would not, But since this thing was not your norm, this did not go through any process of the municipality, and clearly this would not, in my view, it cannot be anything that binds the municipality. It cannot be anything that speaks to the municipality. Ordinarily, as much as it is an issue that concerns EMPD, it will be the city of Ekurhuleni and the service provider.
Well, in fact, is it not fair or so that that documented 134, page 134, it is not an agreement, a memorandum of agreement between Ekurhuleni and Medicare, even on the best generous interpretation. If you look at page 139 clearly is an internal process. So 139 is a page that has support, approved. So that's your internal document, right? Which is the last page attached to the supposed memorandum of agreement. So there's no signature anyway by the municipality, purported by the municipality to create an agreement with Medicare, because this document doesn't do that.
Yes.
Okay. And the same with the one that starts at 141.
Yeah.
It is exactly the same thing.
Exactly.
Thank you. So any services that may have been rendered on the basis of these two purported agreements, we know from the evidence that at one of the state of the city addresses, there were people there who were later identified to have been from CAT VIP protection, that they couldn't have been provided in terms of these, because this is not an agreement.
It's a non-agreement.
In a company. Thank you.
It's a non-agreement not only because of the lack of signatures, it's a non-agreement because it does not comply with the regulatory framework.
And the requirements of an agreement anyway,
Yes.
at law.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Nciza, if we turn back to the Memorandum of Agreement on page 141, that's between the EMPD and CAT VIP.
Yes.
Thank you. If I could ask you to have regard to page 143, please. Page 143.
Yes, ma'am.
And do you see the effective date there?
Yes.
Yes. Stated as?
It's /10/2021.
Thank you. Could you then tell the Commission what is the date of signature of the Director of Specialized Services at the bottom of the page?
The date is recorded as 13/10/2021.
Could I ask you then to flip the page to page 144 and identify the intended date or so of signature for Mr. Matlala set out there?
The intended date of signature for Mr. Matlala is the 15th of June, 2021. 2022.
Thank you.
Sorry, Commissioners.
And
2022.
Could I ask what do you make of that difference in between the dates as they regulate the Memorandum of Agreement?
Again, this is very anomalous. If indeed there was to be an agreement reached, it can't be reached one party signs in October this year, the other party signs some 8 months thereafter. It doesn't make sense unless there is something that was intended by putting this date in. Remember, the date on page 144 is a typed in date. That also creates a problem for me. If this is one document, why would the one part be a typed in date and the other one is a handwritten date? in one document and a year apart. If indeed this was one document.
My observation is that this date of 13 October 2021 on page 143 was a poor attempt at trying to regularize the contents of the letter on page 54. Because without this, you cannot explain why you say there's an endless agreement, the source of which is a memorandum of understanding. So he needed this 13 October 2021 date to precede that letter on page 54. That's my observation.
If indeed, if I may be allowed, Commissioner, to take that theory further. When, unfortunately, I'm running ahead of you, Councillor.
Please proceed.
When you look at then the letter of commitment that is now on page 146. The letter of commitment on page 146 of the bundle aligns with the date on page 144. So if indeed this
For the record, which is 15 June 2020.
15 June 2022, the letter of commitment on page 146 is dated 15 June 2022, coming from CAT VIP Protection. The date on page 144 of the supposed memorandum of agreement with CAT VIP is dated the 15th June 2022. So if I was to take what Commissioner has raised now as part of this regularization process, my sense is that they needed to do this because this is post the State of the Nation, State of the City address. The 15th of June is post the State of the City address. But now there is a question raised around what happened, So they needed to do this. And unfortunately, this is just a hypothesis that one is raising. They needed to then cover their tracks, I don't even believe that this letter was actually generated on the 15th of June 2022. No.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Nciza, before we turn to the discussion of the letter of intention to commit on page 146, are there any concluding remarks you would like to make as they relate to the memorandum of understanding?
I think we've traversed them enough. I should think I'm okay with what I've said on them.
Thank you.
Maybe one last observation, Mr. Nciza. At that page 143, effective date, you've said that it doesn't say when it starts and when it ends, in fact. Maybe that's consistent with Brigadier Mkhwanazi saying
it's an endless working relationship.
There's some consistency, at least.
Yeah, you're correct, Commissioner. Indeed, if there were dates that were inserted on page 143, then it would not be an endless working relationship. And remember, this is an endless working relationship with no start date. He doesn't say in his memorandum, this is an endless working relationship that commenced when. And hence, even the effective date on page 143 doesn't indicate effective from when and when is it supposed to end. So, yeah, you don't know. Maybe it commenced on the day that he wrote the memorandum.
And also just one observation relating to the letter of intention to commit. The subject in so many words refers to an intention. Now, and this is on 15 June 2022, as you have said, then one wonders what was happening between October 2021 and 15 June 2022. One would have understood if this letter, instead of referring to an intention, because you can talk about an intention if you have not begun doing that which you intend to do. So it means they are suggesting in this letter that they have not started doing what they intend doing, and that it will be from some point from the 15th of June 2022 that they will start doing whatever it is that they want to do. So I would have understood if this letter said something like, not that it would, what they were doing would have been correct, no. But I would have understood the letter better if it said something like, a recorder of the services being rendered by CAD VIP Security Services. Just an observation. Do you wish to comment on that?
It's spot on. That observation is spot on. It is one of the things that one had noted to say this talks about an intention. This letter says, I intend to commit. However, Brigadier Mkhwanazi's letter says there is a relationship. So, but Matlala says, no, there's a future occurrence. It's an intention to commit, therefore there's a future occurrence. Whereas Mkhwanazi says there is a living process, it's an ongoing process. So indeed, you are correct, Chair, that the two, I'm sorry, but this was just a form of an disingenuous attempt at covering up whatever people were doing. They knew that their actions they'll be caught out, so they needed to do all sorts of backdating. Because to me, this was just an attempt to backdate, but they were not aligned. They were not aligned. At least they should have sat in the same room and then crafted the two letters from the same room and compare the letters.
Thank you, Chair. In continuing your discussion relating to the letter of intention to commit, you set out further concerns in paragraph 39.3 and 39.4 of your witness statement. Please take the Commission through those.
And I think, Council, what the Chair has raised, in terms of the intention, it's even though I've not captured it succinctly in the statement, but it's an issue, that one considered when now we had to deal with the actual registration of the vehicles, because this letter gets used as a donation letter, whereas there is no donation that the letter says I am doing. It says I intend to commit, and as part of that intention, there shall be a donation. But there is no letter that actually donates in terms of the processes that had happened. So indeed, this letter again raises the MOA, the Memorandum of Agreement, and that is where the problem starts, because it says CAD VIP Protection under the leadership of Mr. Vusumuzi Matlala has signed a Memorandum of Agreement with the Ekurhuleni Metropolitan Police Department. There is no signed Memorandum of Agreement. At least Mr. Mkhwanazi, who gave us these documents, not given us a signed Memorandum of Agreement. And we have not, in any of the processes that we conducted that was conducted in the investigation, come across a signed Memorandum of Agreement. So the premise that this thing refers to, the premise that this thing refers to is absolutely incorrect. It's a misrepresentation. It says we've entered into a process that does not exist. And again, it's worrisome that you would have a private company saying that it has intentions of enhancing the state's efforts in crime fighting. You know, this is a private security company, and it says, no, we have intentions to enhance your efforts in crime prevention and to assist in VIP protection. This for me, honestly, it was just a question of trying to plug the gap that they needed to explain about the state of the city address processes.
Mr. Nciza, you detail further concerns with the process in paragraph 39.4.
Yeah. The municipality has a gifts and donations policy. One of the aspects or provisions of that policy is first, before you can receive a gift, the municipality has to scrutinize the donor. We need to find out who is the donor, what standing the donor has, and, you know, are there any issues that actually as a government entity we should be concerned about the donor, not the donation yet. You know, before you even get to the point of the donation, you have to look at who is the donor. Because you don't want a situation wherein as a government entity you are then aligning yourselves with persons or institutions or entities that are questionable. You know, so that is what the donations policy prescribes. That before you even talk about the donation, let's look at who is donating. So clearly, it would have been unlawful for the municipality to just get a donation without having done its due diligence in respect of the donor itself. Secondly, the donation that is intended, in order again, Chair, I must emphasize that as a regulated body, a municipality, everything we do must be recorded. It must be recorded. If there is an offer to donate something to the municipality, you know, not to the individual, to the municipality, there must be a report. And in that report, one would have expected that the report would then talk to these issues that are raised in page 146. That report must say, as a municipality, we've got a problem of capacity in terms of our crime prevention efforts. We do not have enough vehicles. We do not have enough capacity, personnel. We do not have the necessary skills and competences, you know, in terms of maybe tactical training and whatever else that is raised here. There must be a report that talks to these issues. You know, if I was Brigadier Mkhwanazi as the person that is in charge of specialized unit, the specialized unit, mine was then to do that assessment of our capacity, submit a report to the senior management team of EMPD, you know, and ask that we as EMPD approach council for council to provide us with the necessary resources to plug the gap. That's where you start. You don't start by going to some company outside and then you got all sorts of arrangements. You don't. If indeed this thing is above board, if this thing is done honestly, you know, you must submit a report. Identify the gaps, identify all the challenges that we're facing, then make recommendations on how to plug this. But the default position is that to ask council to provide with the capacity. Council, if indeed this is an issue that requires the municipality to get funding, council will then take a resolution to submit something to National Treasury to assist. We are a government. by a government. So all these issues that are raised in this letter, these are things that should first be dealt with internally in the municipality.
Are you suggesting that there can be no donation if there is no gap that's sought to be plugged?
That's just the thing. Why donate to government?
Assume that
out of nowhere.
Assume that I'm a billionaire and I want to donate to you a few billions for service delivery.
Well, I don't know, Chair. I mean, if indeed such a situation will arise, but still would need a report. In everything that we do, there must be a recordal that indeed this was identified or this person approached us and wants to enter into this particular partnership or wants to donate these resources to the institution. Because they are contingent issues that arise out of a donation, especially a donation of an asset that is to be utilized. You as the donor, you'll give the municipality this vehicle. But once the vehicle now becomes an asset of the municipality, the vehicle must be funded by the municipality in order for us to use it. You must make sure that there's petrol, tires must be changed, all sorts of things. So now your donation, nice as it is, creates a burden on the municipality. Because now we must service it, we must do this, we must do that. So we must create funding that will not come from you, but must come from the coffers of the municipality in order for us to utilize that donation. So that report must talk to those issues. That report must talk to those issues that if we accept this donation, these are the contingent issues that then come with it, that we will need to get funding. So therefore, finance must then identify a vote number that will be able to be utilized for the purposes of us accepting the donation and therefore be able to utilize it going forward.
Thank you, Chair.
Does council play have a role in the acceptance, in the decision to accept
Yes.
or reject a donation?
It does.
Okay. How does that come about? What happens? You make a submission?
A report. Everything, unfortunately, requires a report. The report then goes through the structures. The report, of course, will go to other departments that will be involved. The donation to EMPD, fleet department must be able to make their own comments on the report in terms of how this particular asset will be utilized. Finance department must be able to make their comment on the funding for the utilization of that particular asset. And then it goes onto the structures of council, especially, this type of donation, these are easily going into millions. Vehicles of this nature would probably go into millions in terms of their value. Then council must be in a position to take that view, having, of course, done the due diligence around the donor, but council must resolve to accept the donation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Nciza, in addition to the issue you've raised about a lack of a report, can I ask you to have regard to paragraph 39.4 of your witness statement? Paragraph 39.4. In the second sentence of paragraph 39.4, you raise a further concern. Please detail that to the Commission.
Now, you have this letter of commitment, and then we get to learn that the donation was effected. And I'm saying effected, or the donation in codes and effected in codes as well, in January, by way of the cars registered under the municipality. But the Jeff Wicks query, media query, does not reflect these cars as being utilized by the institution. They were registered. Sorry, commissioners.
You can tell them you're in the commission. They must not disturb you. You're talking.
No, it's my 12 o'clock alarm for prayer. I pray at 12, sorry. I'm sorry about that. It's one of the things that I want to switch this thing off. Done. Right. Apologies.
No need for an apology. In fact, you should have prayed for all of us.
Anytime, Commissioner. Anytime. So you have the so-called donation occurring in January 2023 by registration of the vehicles unto the municipality. But the media query from Jeff Weeks conclusively shows that these vehicles were utilized by the donor. So there is no benefit that the institution then derived from the donation. You know, I make the example, Commissioner, that if I'm to give you my laptop and donate my laptop to you, and then we input your details on the laptop so that the digital footprint is Madlanga, but then I retain the laptop. I continue to use the laptop. So if tomorrow there are issues that arise out of the laptop, the digital footprint will say, well, Madlanga's laptop did this, you know. But I continue to use the laptop. So whose laptop is it? You know, so was there a donation? No, there was no donation. You know, because if we donate something, you must hand it over. It then becomes that person, the beneficiary's asset. But in this instance, there was no handover. Actually, we did not even know about the donation until the media query. So, yeah, that is one of the issues. There was no handover. And in that 2 months period where these vehicles were under the municipality's name, you know, we don't know exactly what would have happened or what happened. You know, what type of transactions, you know, these vehicles were used in. You know, what is it that was ferried through these vehicles? We don't know that. But what we do know is that if these vehicles encountered any form of scrutiny by any law enforcement agency, that law enforcement agency probably would have said they are municipal vehicles and therefore let me back off. And
is it fair to suggest that perhaps the registration period, January to, and then deregistration, well, the donation period and registration period and deregistration from you may well indicate or may suggest that in that period, that cover that is provided by the municipality may well have been required for a specific purpose, because they get registered in January or given to you Jan and registered and then deregistered March. So it may well be there was a specific purpose for it, and once it was achieved, the vehicles were then deregistered.
I can only postulate, Madam Commissioner, that had it not been for Jeff Weeks, whatever the purpose was would have continued. Because the deregistration process happens as a result of Jeff Weeks. You know, remember, we didn't know as a municipality. You know, so if Jeff Weeks then didn't raise the alarm, whatever it is that the vehicles were doing would have continued. I don't know for how long, you know. So it might be that indeed there might have been a purpose and an underlying purpose why this scheme was generated. But that underlying purpose could not have been for the shortened, because we're talking about a month and a half from around the 18th of January to the 6th of March. So we're talking about a month and a half or so, wherein these vehicles were registered under the municipality. So whatever the scheme was, it's probable that it was a much larger intention than much, because the evidence that we gathered shows that when now Mkhwanazi gets suspended, then he then raises the issue with Fleet to say, hey, let's give me the documents, let's do the deregistration process, because the donation process is cancelled. So, yeah.
Maybe those epaulets should have been given to Mr. Wicks then.
The what?
And maybe those epaulets and Georgettes should have been given to Mr. Wicks.
We owe him a huge gratitude.
It sounds like. Thank
We
you.
owe him a huge gratitude as an institution. We don't know exactly what the name of the municipality would have been taken through. I mean, can you imagine a situation wherein indeed any of these vehicles gets entangled in some criminal activity, and the law enforcement agency that is dealing with that criminal activity picks up that this vehicle is an Ekurhuleni vehicle? It would then have meant that our vehicles are used in a criminal enterprise.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's depressing to even think about. But what I also raised in 39.4, commissioners, is another serious concern. All things being equal, if these vehicles indeed were registered under the municipality, properly registered, and the donation process had been properly done, and assume that these became municipal assets, because now on the 18th of January, the vehicle BMW is now on the system in a Ekurhuleni asset. If that had been done, and we were to accept that a donation had occurred, the process of deregistration raises even another problem. Because now you have got a municipal asset. There is a process that you must go, you must now invoke in order to dispose of a municipal asset. Because once these things are now in the register of the municipality, and I'm not suggesting that they were in the register of the municipality, they were just on the innate system, but they were not on the register of the municipality. But the fact that now they are called Ekurhuleni Metropolitan Municipality vehicles, they are now assets of the municipality. In order for you to dispose of a municipal asset, again, you need a report. You need a report, and that report goes all the way to the municipal council. And council must then resolve that such asset must be disposed of. An asset like a motor vehicle, and I'm raising this because a number of reports had existed where indeed motor vehicles would be disposed of by the municipality, can only be disposed of via a public auction. If the municipality wants to dispose of an asset, it must advertise such a disposal process and call upon members of the public to come and bid in a public auction for them to buy that asset. Remember, this is an asset of society, because government exists for the people. So then the people must then be given an option to gain that asset. We do that even with regards to land, So this instance, you have a municipal asset that is now disposed of without informing due process again.
Thank you. Mr. Nciza, in your earlier exchange with Commissioner Baloyi, you mentioned the name of a Mr. Steyn. I'm going to ask you to turn to page 156 of your annexure bundle, please. 156 of your annexure bundle.
There you go.
Yes.
And there?
Just in order to provide context to you, Mr. Nciza, we are still dealing with the contents of that investigation report that was provided to you. And one of those documents is this one, titled Memorandum on the top left. Do you see that?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Please identify to the Commission who the document is from.
The document is from Mr. Chris Stein
you, and
from
it is-
Fleet Department,
Indeed. And it is directed to,
Chief Mapiayo.
thank you. And the subject of the document is?
Donation of vehicles.
Thank you. Please just describe to the Commission what is fleet, what is the role of fleet management in the municipality before you go through the letter.
Commissioners, we have a department in the municipality called Transport and Fleet Management. That department has got two critical roles. In respect of the leg of transport, they deal with the regulatory framework for public transportation within the jurisdiction of the municipality. Your buses, your taxis, and the likes. That unit deals with basically that. Then fleet. Fleet is now internal transport arrangements. All the vehicles of the municipality, from buying vehicles, services of vehicles, repairs. Even when a vehicle is involved in an accident, fleet gets contacted, they come. So they become the custodians of the vehicles of the municipality. Everything that concerns vehicles, fleet are the people that must deal with it. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Nciza, could I ask you to look at paragraph 2 of that memorandum? It starts in December 2022. Do you see that?
Yes.
Could I ask you to read that, please?
In December 2022, Director Mkhwanazi from EMPD came to see me about a donation of vehicles to EMPD. I indicated to Director Mkhwanazi that the licensing department are closing for December holidays and that he has to come back in January 2023.
Please continue.
In January 2023, I indicated to Director Mkhwanazi that there must be a letter of donation from donator to EMPD. In January 2023, Director Mkhwanazi brought me the documents and vehicles registration documents to me at my office in Primrose. They be registered in COE as per donation. I gave the documents to my admin representative to register the vehicles as per donation to EMPD.
Thank you. In paragraph 4 of that letter, Mr. Stein continues to set out, Mr. Stein explains his position then in response to the request from Mr. Mkhwanazi. Could I ask you just to explain to the Commission what he says in paragraph 4?
Well, it says Mkhwanazi is a senior officer who approached him, Stein, with a donation letter, and he didn't see anything wrong. And all he requested was a formal letter on the donation of the vehicles. And he takes the view that indeed a donation would assist EMPD as the department are currently struggling with low enforcement vehicles. Then he says this is the norm, as my understanding as SIT program, Caesar's program, and Gauteng heavy vehicle donations were donated only on a donation letter.
And what does he continue to say there in paragraph 5 in February 2023?
In February 2023, Director Mkhwanazi contacted me and informed me that the donation is cancelled and he will send people to collect the documents to change it back to the donator.
And the final paragraph of that memorandum, paragraph 6.
Then he said, see attached letter of donation from CAT VIP Protection and Memorandum of Agreement.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Nciza, could Mr. Stein rely on the documents mentioned in paragraph 6 in light of the concerns that you have expressed to the Commission this morning, in particularly as they relate to the letter of donation?
With all due respect, it's mind-boggling that Stein would write this letter. It just Firstly, he says he relied on the letter that is on page 157 to page 158, which is the letter that we had dealt with earlier on from CAT VIP Protection. And the letter is even unsigned. And again, the letter is an intention. There is no actual letter where CAT VIP is donating. You know, even if indeed this so-called norm existed, which I refute, such a norm does not exist. It couldn't exist in a government institution, that a simple letter would effectively generate financial implications for the municipalities, as I've earlier explained. But nonetheless, his reliance on the letter as well as the memorandum is just,
mind-boggling, as you say.
it's mind-boggling.
You say.
I mean, none of the documents that he refers to are signed by anybody. I mean, the memorandum is supposedly must be approved by MAPA, but it's not approved by MAPA. You know, the memorandum of agreement is not approved by MAPA. Matlala has not signed his letter of commitment or so-called donation letter. You know, so even if I was to give him the benefit of the doubt, that would have to be premised on signed documents from authorized people. None of the documents that he gave to the investigator actually have got anybody's signature.
But also that letter of intention to commit that he says he relied on doesn't even specify the vehicles. It just says BMW, Mercedes-Benz, Volkswagen Golf. How does he know that whatever he's given, these are the vehicles?
You know, honestly, commissioners, because this is an issue that we had raised, and of course, there was an intention that this must be taken up with Fleet for them to investigate Chris's actions in this particular regard, because this simply didn't cut it. It can't.
Did anything come of that intention for Fleet to instruct Fleet to investigate? Did anything happen?
Not to my knowledge.
The fleet department and the licensing department, are they part of EMPD or are they a separate division?
Licensing department is part of EMPD. Fleet is different. Fleet is fleet and transport. It's a separate. Remember, Fleet looks into the entirety of the fleet arrangements in the municipality for all departments.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Nciza, if you have regard to paragraph 5 of Mr. Stein's memorandum, he details there that he was contacted by Director Mkhwanazi and informed that the donation is cancelled. Do you see that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Can I just comment a bit?
Yes, please do, particularly with reference to the concerns you've expressed about proper cancellation as opposed to deregistration in this context.
Commissioners, firstly, paragraph 4, Stein is effectively saying, I took Mkhwanazi's word. Okay, fine, I've got these documents that are unsigned, but I mean, I was approached by Mkhwanazi, who's a senior EMPD officer, and I didn't see anything wrong. So effectively, I didn't concern myself with due process. I didn't concern myself with council policy and processes. The fact that this senior person came to me sufficed for me to process this thing. Essentially, that is what he's saying. Then on this one about cancellation, even then, if indeed these vehicles were now registered under the municipality on the basis of the donation letter, and let's assume that the donation letter was proper, and it had followed all due processes. How do you then effect processes to cancel on the basis of a simple phone call? I was contacted. I'm not sure whether he went to him or he phoned him, but the bottom line is there's nothing, there's no paperwork. When he was supposed to do the registration, he said, give me the donation letter. And he got the donation letter and did the registration. But now when there's a cancellation, he does not demand the cancellation letter. You get my point? For the one to come in, I require something, but to go out, it's fine, let it go out. That is also disconcerting. That is a rather very blasé way, a manner of dealing with municipal processes and what would have then become a municipal property. Then he just gave him the documents to cancel.
Aren't these policies, for example, the donation policy, what is involved, what is the process and the approvals required, are those things not widely available to employees?
They are on the intranet.
So every employee...
And they've been there. For instance, the donation policy, Madam Commissioner, has been on the intranet. I mean, it's a policy, if I recall, that was approved way back around between 2006 and 2008, around about then.
So you would you expect that Mr. Steyn, who receives donations and he makes reference to heavy vehicles and other donations, that he would be aware of that policy and what it requires?
It is obligatory of him to be au fait with the policy.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Nciza, that's then your final sub-paragraph under paragraph 39, where you were taking the commission through the factors that motivated you to sign the approval to constitute the disciplinary tribunal against Director Mkhwanazi. Sorry. Are there any further remarks or concluding remarks you would like to make on that topic?
Well, it's. I think I've remarked enough. I've remarked enough.
Great. And in that case, then please have regard to paragraph 40 of your witness statement. We're on the same page. And so having made that decision to sign, you set out there the subsequent developments in that meeting of the 12th of April. Please take the commission through that.
Yes, commissioners, this was an alarming issue that was raised in that meeting. Remember, I testified that Chief Mapia and his team would brief me on a regular basis about other investigations that they had been working with IPID on, or they had been informed by IPID. Then they raised this one about an investigation that IPID engaged them on regarding a murder of a shop owner, which they suspected that it was an extortion gone wrong. And again, the names of the three officers were raised with me, Mackenzie, Stolz, and Twala, as well as the involvement of Brigadier Mkhwanazi in respect of this particular matter, to do some form of cleanup of the scene and disposal of the body. They raised those issues, and indeed,
Mr. Nciza, up to this point, the witnesses who came before you avoided mentioning the names, reason being they were not quite sure whether the officers had actually appeared in court. You've already mentioned them now. Perhaps going forward, if you could also just avoid a repeat of that.
Apologies, Commissioner.
No problem.
Yeah, so they mentioned several EMPD officers who allegedly took part in the torture and the murder, as well as the disposal of the body. And they then indicated that in terms of their engagements, the chief's engagements with the executive head of IPD, there was a sense that there is some imminent arrest that would be made by IPD that involved colleagues in the EMPD, inclusive of the brigadier.
Please proceed to paragraph 41.
We then, of course, having received that information, we then discussed the challenges of now we've approved a disciplinary tribunal. What then? If indeed there is these processes that are underway, how then do we move forward? We engaged, and the sense that the chief provided me is that perhaps let us provide IPD with an opportunity to do their work and indeed effect the arrest, because it would impact the processing of the disciplinary process should we immediately institute the disciplinary proceedings. My judgment call that I made at that particular meeting was to say, in terms of the collective agreement, from the date that I've made a determination to the commencement of the disciplinary hearing, I've got 3 months. So I took the view that indeed, let me afford the department that latitude in terms of working with IPD and dealing with the issues that they need to deal with, to deal with the criminal aspect. Once that criminal aspect has been dealt with, then I can then engage on the HR issues.
Mr. Nciza, you set out in paragraph 41 some of the concerns you had about immediately proceeding to constitute the disciplinary tribunal. Could you please expound on that?
The issues that I've reflected on, firstly, indeed, at the point when we took a view that a disciplinary tribunal must be constituted, and looking at the level of the employee, and of course what I explained earlier on this morning about the default position in terms of the collective agreement and the panel that I had at my disposal, the complexity of the issues that pertain to this matter, the potential for victimization of your internal disciplinary committee. We took the view that indeed we might require that we get legal representation. Now, if indeed I'm going to appoint attorneys to deal with the matter, or even instruct an advocate to deal with the matter, from the moment that they receive their appointment letter, they start working on the matter, and now you'll find that they work on the matter and then the matter is not able to proceed because people are arrested, so it would not actually assist the institution. Perhaps let's await, because we do have this period in terms of the collective agreement. Let's let those other processes unfold, so that indeed we appoint a disciplinary committee at the appropriate time, and then we're able to process the disciplinary hearing in a manner that will ensure that the hearing itself continues and it gets finalized.
And in the course of that meeting, what was then resolved? On what basis did you conclude a way forward? Paragraph 42.
The conclusion that was reached was that, firstly, I made the decision that I will not constitute a disciplinary hearing immediately, but I would constitute it within the period that is envisaged in the collective agreement, which is within 3 months. in light of the fact that there was this possibility of arrest. We also agreed that Chief Mapia would regularly liaise with IPID for updates and also update me so that indeed I'm kept abreast, and then I can be in a position to make a considered view on the appointment of the disciplinary committee. We also decided that for security reasons, remember, commissioners, at this point, unlike other matters in my unit, I would involve my managers that reported to me. I had a unit that actually deals with discipline management, but at this point, I had not involved them. I honestly had kept this matter, especially given the other issues that were also involved. I kept it with myself, and I only dealt with the Chief of Police, Spies and Erasmus, and no one else regarding it. So I then took a view that if this docket remains in my office, it can have a potential of being exposed to other individuals within my unit. So we then decided that Erasmus must keep the docket because he had a safe in his office where he keeps sensitive documents. So we decided that let him keep the document, the docket, and then secure it at his premises, at his office and the likes, so that indeed we do not incur any breach of the process that we're involved with.
And on the basis of that resolution, that then concluded your meeting of the 12th of April.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. But turning to paragraph 43 on page 17, please detail to the Commission the events subsequent to that meeting.
All right. Now, of course, we would have these engagements with Chief of Police, almost on a weekly basis. But what was becoming clear is that IPID is not making the imminent arrest that they had promised. So in May, the middle of May 2023, Erasmus approached me. I think it was one of the instances where he would come to my office and to deal with ongoing investigations. And then he indicated to me that, hey, there's a problem that we're going to encounter because Brigadier Mkhwanazi's suspension was going to expire on the 24th of May. So there's a likelihood that then he would then come back, and we have not processed this discipline. So I advised him to say, if as a department they feel or they've got evidence to suggest that indeed Brigadier Mkhwanazi's return would interfere with witnesses and would interfere with the running of the disciplinary hearing, the envisaged disciplinary hearing, then they should motivate. They should do what we normally do. It's a process that we have been engaging in for a while in the municipality, where indeed a department then would submit a motivation that would be signed by the head of department and address it to the head of department, HR, Ashega, of which, of course, they then did.
Please then continue to paragraph 45 and 46.
Yeah. So we did indeed receive the extension request from the Chief of Police, and I discussed it with Ashega, the HOD-HR, and she agreed. She agreed that indeed we shall effect the extension of the suspension. And that request was provided to Ashega on the 22nd of May 2023. On the night of the 23rd of May 2023, I saw that on my WhatsApp, I had a missed call from Dr. Mashazi, the city manager. This would have been because the timestamp on my phone still has it as 1813. And then I would have called back Dr. Mashazi about 30 minutes thereafter, around 1845 or so. When I called her, she picked up the phone and she just came at me. Raised the issue of the extension of Mkhwanazi's suspension. And yeah, you guys hate Julius. You and your friend, Chief Mapieye, you hate Julius. You know, we must leave Julius alone. You know, I'm like, no. What is this about? No. Julius, we are not going to extend his suspension. We're not Xolani, you must stop this thing of yours. Like how? Firstly, I explained to her that, but firstly, I don't take decisions about suspensions or extensions. You know, mine is to advise upon receiving a request from a department. Mine is to advise the person that must take that decision, which is Tlasheka. Well, she was like, no, you are lying. You are the one that take these decisions. Linda just simply signs. Okay, but that's not how the process works, you know. And I was told that I was targeting Brigadier Mkhwanazi. I was personal towards him. And Commissioner, honestly, this was not a calm discussion. My boss is effectively shouting at me and lambasting me. Then she told me during that particular call that when unahana or masipala wa hao.
Please translate that for our...
You think this is your municipality? Yeah, but like, I don't understand. How do I think this is my municipality? Yeah, you think you can do anything you want in the municipality. My attempts, of course, of trying to calm down Dr. Masazi didn't succeed. She was genuinely angry that there was even an attempt or even talk of extending the suspension of Mkhwanazi. Now, she indicated that, of course, she's going to call Tlasheka to deal with this and tell Tlasheka that Mkhwanazi must be back at work the very next day. At the end of the call, she instructed me to facilitate the return of Mkhwanazi to work. And I must update her by 11 a.m. the next day that Mkhwanazi is back at work. I've known Dr. Masazi since 1999, when I was in the trade union movement. I met her at Springs when she was a manager in the health department. I had never experienced such hostility from her. You know.
I just want to understand something. So this is now May 2023.
Yes.
Up to that point, your discussions were with Chief Mapieye and the head of HR. You had never discussed the Mkhwanazi issue with the municipal manager.
We did. Remember, we discussed the Mkhwanazi issue with the municipal manager on the 16th of February.
In Feb.
You know, when we briefed her that we are going to engage in a process to investigate the allegations as per the Jeff Weeks media query, and also if potentially institute disciplinary proceedings, you know, and also suspend Mkhwanazi. All of that was discussed, and we had her support on the 16th. After the 16th, I had never discussed the issue with her because there was no need in so far as I was concerned, because my processes, you know, are clear. You know, now this comes in my this came out of the blue, you know, came out of the blue, and I interacted with Dr. Mkhwanazi on a number of issues. I would be in her office, she would contact me. At no point was there ever even a request for an update to say, by the way, how far are you? What's happening there? Nothing. So you could imagine that I've never had a discussion with Dr. Mkhwanazi after the 16th of February. Now, the 23rd of May comes this call, And at the end of the call, I am told that Hela Julius. You leave Julius alone. So, it was quite a shocker. It was quite a shocker, and I don't know, should I proceed?
Before this incident, had Dr. Mkhwanazi ever intervened in a disciplinary matter with you directly?
Yes.
In what circumstances?
Yes. It was not at the level of a disciplinary hearing. In 2017, there is a case that had arisen in our communications and also, customer relations management department, CRM, where the head of department at that time had caused an investigation to be conducted against the activities of a divisional head. Now, when that came to Mkhwanazi's attention, because that head of department had requested Security and Loss Control Unit of EMPD to conduct this investigation about nepotism and all sorts of other problems regarding a contract management. When that came to Mkhwanazi's attention, she then instructed that we can that investigation. And at that point, the investigation report was out. We can that investigation and don't appoint a disciplinary tribunal. And then she instructed me to draft a new directive on how investigations are to be conducted in the municipality. And that directive was to the effect that no investigation shall be conducted against a divisional head without the city manager being informed and the city manager approving. Now, I did not have a problem with that concept or that particular principle because divisional heads are not covered by the DPCA. So I did not have a problem with that. We crafted that, but she stopped a disciplinary hearing from proceeding, even though we had not yet appointed.
In this case, in the case of Brigadier Mkhwanazi, she, other than to say you're being personal and that stuff that has nothing to do with the merits of the of the disciplinary action, did she provide a reason based on the merits of the suspension itself?
The entire conversation, at no point was I asked, as the custodian of discipline management processes in the municipality, whether there was a basis, in my view, for the extension of the suspension. And remember, at this point, we're not even discussing the actual investigation report. There's not even a question about it. I was not even given an opportunity to raise the fact that I actually have an investigation report that says something is wrong. And therefore, this employee must be disciplined. That does not arise in this conversation. This conversation was a vitriolic attack on me, on Commissioner Mapie as the Chief of Police. It was a very personal engagement. It had nothing to do with municipal processes.
When you spoke to her in February, where you say she supported the proposed course of action, did you explain what the nature of the allegations, even if not in detail, Did you explain to her the reason why suspension is a likely path that you are taking? Did she
Yes.
become aware of all of that explanation?
We explained that these are the allegations. We explained the media query. We explained the Matlala connection. We explained the issue of the registration of the vehicles. We explained the issue of the operational plan, that we're not even aware that there was CAT VIP involvement in the state of the city address. She expressed shock because she was the city manager even at that time. She was also not aware that there was CAT VIP that was involved in such in that particular state of the city address. So we explained everything, and honestly, she responded like what a chief executive officer would do. The allegations of serious misconduct, investigate them, suspend the employee, ensure that your processes are implemented.
Did you ever become aware, or do you have a possible explanation why the change in her position from the seriously supportive, as you describe, in February, and this kind of engagement and instruction to discontinue? Did you ever come to know why there's that change, or at least have a view about what would explain such a drastic change to the other extreme?
I can only express a view because I do not have evidence of it. But what became clear, even when I engaged the chief, remember, in February, when we took a view that let's go and engage her, one of the things that the chief raised with me was the proximity between herself and Mkhwanazi. So the only thing that in our assessment we could come to is that Mkhwanazi would have gone to her to indicate that this is what is happening. And therefore she intervened because there would have been a request. Because in terms of EMPD, nothing official had gone to her office. In terms of HR, nothing official had gone to her office. In terms of Klashega and my engagements with Klashega, there was nothing. So the only person that would be a factor in this entire situation would be Mkhwanazi. There is no engagement with chief, there is no engagement with HOD-HR, and at this point, there's no even an engagement with the legal HOD. At this point, the only person that, in our view, would have had that particular access, would have convinced her to take this posture, is the person that is the subject of the telephone call.
Does your answer suggest that when you spoke to her in February, Mr. Mkhwanazi had not spoken to her? Because my question is really about that you have at the beginning support, and then later on you have the opposite, in fact, that undoes that support you had. Does your answer suggest that in February, when you did the first approach, Brigadier Mkhwanazi would not have spoken to her at that time?
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Chairperson, I'm noting that it's just a minute before 1. It might be an opportune moment for lunch.
Let's adjourn and resume at 2 p.m.